and welcome back to AR77. In front of us today on the table we have the Glock 19X. I wanted to do another look at this gun for a number of reasons. The first reason being it was out on the table already when I was making another video this weekend. So it was out, and as chance would have it, I kind of slipped and started to shoot it. It's amazing how that happens. One minute you're just trying to get on with your daily chores, the next thing you find you've got an air pistol in your hand and you're shooting at a target. So I was shooting the gun, I realised how much I really enjoy shooting it, and it is one of the most popular guns on the channel. There's since it came on the channel, I think it was like the 20th review I did, and people seem to keep coming back to it. It seems like a really popular gun or a really popular video. I think I will take zero credit for that. I think it's just a gun that people are interested in. So I thought we'd take a bit of a closer look at the Glock 19X. So this is a 4.5mm BB shooting CO2 powered replica of the Glock 19X. Let me give you some information. The 19X is the civilian version of Glock's entry to the XM17 modular handgun system competition for the US military. So there's got a bit of a story behind it. Of course, it wasn't adopted. The SIG P320 was adopted and given its kind of military designation of M17 or M18, if you wanted to go for the kind of the short wheelbase version, if you will. The more compact version. Also, Rands were, I think Ruger had a gun in there as well. Did Smith & Wesson have one in there? I know that Beretta did, and I thought initially it was the M9A3, but I think actually it was the Beretta APX that was part of the competition, and obviously didn't win. This didn't win either. That said, the 19X has proven to be one of Glock's best-selling pistols. Once they released a kind of civilian version of this, over 100,000 sold within the first 6 months of it being released. Now, a lot of people will say, well, what you've got here in the Glock 19X is you've got a Glock 19 slide and a Glock 17 frame. I'll kind of come back to that. What people mean is the length of the slide there is similar, if not identical, to the length of slide of the Glock 19. If you can see with my Umarex Glock 19 there, let's take that out of the way. But in terms of the length of the grip or the handle of the gun, it's far closer to that of the Glock 17, this being my Glock 17 Gen 4, which was also out on the table. So you can see you've got that kind of length of grip, whereas you've got a shorter barrel. And again, I'll come back to that a little bit later on. You do have this fantastic kind of coyote brown finish to the gun, and I think it looks really well. Both the kind of original 9mm and the air gun, I think it's a really nice contrast of the black and kind of tan or brown, if you will. I've said that on a few videos, but I think it's a really nice looking little pistol. Now, a couple of details that I didn't mention on the initial review that I thought are quite useful for replica collectors are some things that make this gun stand out specifically as a 19X. And two of those things are here. First of all, the 19X has this extra kind of lip there at the base of the grip. That's, as far as I understand it, that's there to prevent pinching. If you've got gloves on and you're putting a mag in, it's to stop you getting any fabric or anything pinched as you're doing quick mag changes. Because don't forget, this was developed for glove wearing people in the military potentially. You also have this lanyard, which I'm assuming was possibly a stipulation of the kind of the modular handgun competition, or just seen as a design feature that might be useful in combat situations. Now, one of the things that people complained about initially with this kind of lip was that things like the Glock Gen 5 mags won't fit in this grip, even though it looks like a kind of a Gen 5 grip. That's not an issue for us airgunners, because only the magazine for the Glock 19X airgun is going to fit in there anyway. As you can see, you've got the Glock 19 mag, and that goes in there quite nicely. If I were to take that out and look at something similar like again, I've shown you this gun before, the MP9 Model 2. Very similar looking magazines, yeah, but it doesn't want to dance. It kind of seems like it's got in there nicely, but it hasn't. It protrudes at the bottom, and it's kind of bit loosey-goosey in there as well, so we take that out of there. We also had the VP9 here, the HK VP9, another fantastic gun with another similar mag, but if I try that in there, nah, it's not having it. So, not an issue, just something to bear in mind. Don't think that if you're buying one of these guns, you're getting a mag for the others as well, because they don't all fit. They all kind of stick to what they know. Yeah, so that's back at home. Obviously, when it comes to other Glocks, the Glock 17 Gen 4 mag is significantly different there, and even more so, the Glock 19 mag is a stick mag, so that's no match for the 19X. Which brings me back to this kind of conversation around, is it a Glock 19, is it a Glock 17, is it a Gen 4, is it a Gen 5? Well, it's what, I would describe it as what Glock describe it as, which is a crossover gun. So if you look at the top of it here, you could say, well, that looks like perhaps a Gen 5 slide, because you've got this kind of tapered front there to the sort of the muzzle of the gun. Yeah, that's true, but it doesn't have any slide serrations at the front there, so that would tell me that it's just a modified version of a Gen 4 slide. Also, if you look at the sort of trigger mechanism here, the way that the trigger is kind of held in place, you have just the one pin there holding the trigger in place, which is more like a Gen 5, whereas if you looked at the Gen 4, you've got two pins holding that trigger mechanism in place, which is Gen 4. So there's some differences there that tell you it's a combination of the two. It's kind of like Gen 5 there, Gen 4 here. This is a bit Gen 5. The grip is a bit more Gen 5 because it doesn't have the finger grooves of a fourth generation. It's got the sort of that flatter profile, and yet it won't accept Generation 5 magazines. This is the 9mm that I'm talking about, but the 9mm will accept Generation 4 magazines. So it's a crossover, and some people would also go on to say, well, what about the M45? That's a newer Glock that looks very similar to a 19X. Is that just a black 19X? No, the M45 is a genuine Generation 5 Glock. It has the slide serrations at the front as well as the rear. So I know they've kind of followed suit with the length of the grip and the length of the slide being kind of 17 and 19, but it's the M45 or the 45, sorry, by Glock is a different specific gun all of its own. I guess one of the reasons for that longer grip is, this was designed for combat, so you're going to fit more rounds of ammunition in a longer grip like that, and yet with that smaller or shorter slide, if you will, it's going to be a more manoeuvrable, more pointable and aimable gun. Other differences to the more standard Glock, apart from this lovely kind of coyote brown colour, which is different obviously to the original kind of Glock black, you've also got these kind of white dot sights, which I actually prefer. I prefer those white dot sights to the, where is it now? There's the sort of more traditional kind of half picture frame there. This is the Gen 4 again, just so you know. I do prefer those white dot sights. And it's good that little detail that happened on the 19X is also carried out onto the airgun. So specific to the airgun, this magazine is going to carry 18 rounds of 4.5mm steel BBs, as opposed to the 17 rounds of 9mm ammunition that the 19X real steel would carry. And I can kind of get why my initial review of this was so popular. I do think it's a really handsome looking gun. I think it's a really good replica of the actual 19X. But it's not my best. It's not a perfect replica. It's not a perfect air gun even besides its kind of replica abilities. You know, this slide feels like it's quite a bit jangly, a little bit rattly. It feels like it's relatively thin metal. I mean, it's not going anywhere. It's stable. It's sturdy, and I'm not criticizing it. It's just it doesn't seem as robust as some of the other air guns that I've got. It does blow back, so that's one thing. But and it locks back after the last shot, but only kind of to that extent. So it's not what I'd call necessarily a full lock back. It's not a genuine single action gun, as I talked about in another video that I did this weekend, and it does have that kind of Umrex mag. The you know, it's very obviously an airgun mag as opposed to a more closer replica of the real steel magazine, like you would get in something like the Glock 17 Gen 4. Also, for the real nitpickers among you, there's a slight difference here. If I put that there and bring up a picture of the real steel, you'll see that there's kind of 3 additional pins in the frame there that don't exist on the real steel. They are specific to the airgun itself. So again, it's not 100% replica. It's kind of manufactured or held together in a slightly different way. That might not bother you at all. That might not put you off at all. But if you are a replica collector, and a strict one at that, that might be something you would consider. So let's look at the positives then. Because of this magazine, your BBs are really easy to load. You've got your follower that comes down, it'll rest back there and sit in place until you've loaded it up with kind of 18 rounds of ammunition, and it all loads in from the top, really nice and easy, and the follower just follows it back up, hence the name follower. You've got this easy to load kind of CO2. You've got your hex screw there, and a nice bit of detail with that base plate with the Glock branding there. So everything's housed in the one place, and it's nicely tucked away behind that base plate. It also comes in quite a nice package. Let me show you the box here. It's, you know, you've got this kind of color coded Glock 19X box, slightly different to the kind of the grey and black boxes of the other pistols. Let me just zoom out a little touch, and you'll get a better view. If I open this box up, you get your little bit of bubble wrap there, just to keep around your slide and keep that looking all nice. That's my evening sorted. You also have a nice glossy, pretty standard kind of Umarex manual there. It comes with a little tool here. I don't know if you can see that for your CO2. Nice little black tool there, and you get this little patch for the airsoft in you. 19X G19X Glock Airsoft Pro Series. I guess that's from the airsoft version. But it's nice to get something additional in one of these boxes. So yeah, it's a pretty good package. I like the fact that it's, you know, just slightly different to the rest of the Glock packaging, and rightly so, because it's a kind of it's a standout gun. It's a little bit different to other things in your collection. And not just because of the Coyote Tan, the Coyote Brown, because there's other guns that are like that, but because this was a significant departure for Glock, I think that's why this is such a popular pistol. And there is really good attention to that cosmetic detail. We've got these kind of, I know that they are faux catchers, and only one side kind of works, but these ambidextrous slide catchers here are a nice touch. The fact that it's a separate piece and it's in that contrasting black is a nice touch. It's good that it does have that additional lip there, like the original 19X. It's good that it does have the lanyard, and they didn't just use the moulding from a kind of a Gen 5 Glock 19 or whatever. They've done a specific job of making it replicate the actual 19X. You do have all these nice subtle Glock markings across all these Umarex Glocks are really nicely marked up with things like that base plate detail there, and you know, no gaudy kind of white writing. You've got your serial number there on the ejection port as well as on the slide. Another little subtle Glock emblem there, all really tastefully done. All your kind of airgun markings are just under here with your kind of lockout switch as well. So it's nicely done, and you've got a working trigger safety. You can't pull the trigger unless your finger is on it properly and engaging that trigger safety. You also have a nice recessed kind of black outer barrel, if you will, there. It really looks the part, it looks the business. I can't stress enough how much I really like the kind of the black and brown contrast. It doesn't, this light doesn't do it justice. I keep it quite bright because I like to get detail like that and stay in focus, but you know, it sometimes makes the gun look not as nice as it does in reality. I like that as well. You know, you can't take the gun down, but they've taken the time to make those kind of levers, those takedown levers. Black. It's a separate piece again, and that adds to the kind of the realism of the replica. And on top of all that, it's got a great story, hasn't it? It's got a great story, this gun. It was involved in the modular handgun kind of competition, didn't win, but Glock said, well, let's release it to the civilian market, and it became a really popular gun in its own right. Plus, it is still a blowback air pistol which locks back after the last shot. It's great fun to shoot out in the garden. It's pretty accurate. I do like the dot sights. As I said before, I prefer those to the kind of half picture frame of the more traditional Glock. You're going to get pretty good CO2 use out of this gun. It doesn't have the sort of silly white markings. It looks the real thing. You know, it looks accurate in terms of it being a replica, other than a few things that are kind of giveaways. And it doesn't break the bank. You know, this is about £30 less than the Glock 17 Gen 4 BB gun, and the non-blowback version is probably about £50 less than that. You know, the original 9mm version of the Glock 19X retailed, as far as I'm aware, at around about $750 in the US, and $460, $450, $460 if it was like a blue label price for kind of emergency services, as we'd call them, or law enforcement, or veterans, or so on and so forth. So what you've got here for about 150 quid, or whatever that translates to, is a Glock 19X, a part of modern history with a great story, great functionality, that you can shoot in your home or in your back garden for a fraction of that price. It's a blowback Glock licensed replica airgun, built, I would say, pretty well. It's not 100% accurate as a replica, but it's great fun as an airgun. So, definitely worth your time. There it is once again, the Glock 19X by Umarex. I hope you enjoyed the video and a bit of a closer look at what I think is a tremendous little replica airgun. Please, once again, do like, share, subscribe, talk to me in the comments, talk to each other in the comments. Take care of yourselves. All the very best. Stay safe. Bye.